Welcome back to the Drop Bass Not Bombs podcast. My name is Amy Farina, aka MC Unicorn, and I'm here today with High Society. How's it going?
Yo, I'm great. Thank you for having me. Stoked to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. I actually found out about you through Justin McGarry's podcast, the Underground Society podcast. He was a guest on my podcast. And, you know, before having him on, I was listening to all the episodes. I'm like, oh, this guy sounds pretty interesting.
Nice. Yeah, love that dude. And
he does a lot.
We both have society in our titles, so kindred spirits right there.
It was meant to be. So awesome. So let's start first. Can you tell everybody a little bit more about you, who you are, where you're from, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm High Society, aka James. I'm from California, so I'm originally from San Francisco. Lived in Europe for a couple of years, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And now I live in San Diego in Southern California. I'm a music producer and DJ. I produce sort of bass music mixed with rock and metal music, which I have coined DATAMOSH.
Ooh,
sort of
DATAMOSH.
My like genre, that world that I'm building out. Yeah.
How'd you come up with the name DATAMOSH?
I don't remember exactly, but there is like a term in, I guess, like graphic design or like motion design or something, which is sort of like this effect called data moshing, where you like it's like taking existing visual art or something and it's like destroying it on purpose and like glitching it out to like make new art and effects. And I like came across this like years and years ago. I was like, oh, that's just like a cool word. Like I like it. And then as I started doing more like rock infused music, I was like, wait, DATAMOSH. And now it is like this huge thing that I'm doing. It's like part of everything that I do.
That's really cool. Nice.
Yeah.
So taking it back to the very beginning, what's your earliest electronic music memory? How did you get into the electronic music scene?
Really, first electronic music memories I have are from when I was like a kid and I was like a huge gamer and stuff like that. And I don't even think I really like knew what this music was, but there was some kind of weird crossover between like gaming stuff and like weird websites that you go on when you're 10 and also like trance music, I think, like in like Sandstorm and stuff like that. But I think my actual, adult first memories, I think, are toward like the end of high school or very early college. I remember specifically the first time that someone ever played me Rusko and just being like, what is this? Like, it was like the strangest. I remember thinking that it was like really awful when I first heard it. I was like, this is just like funny. This is like the least musical thing ever. Yeah, I remember that super vividly. And I guess I started, like I finished high school and started going to college sort of around the exact time that electronic music was like really starting to blow up in the US. So it was sort of like this maybe 6 month to a year period where it went from this really niche, weird thing to like every party you went to, they're playing it, and like people have like DJs at their house parties and stuff like that. So yeah.
Nice. I have a really similar story to you, actually. I got into electronic music through video games, also through Dance Dance Revolution. And at the time, I was like a big DDR player. And at the time, I didn't know what I was listening to either. And now I know it. It's like, okay, a lot of this is nightcore, a lot of this is jump style, a lot of this is hard dance. And now I'm mostly listening to hard dance, hard style and hardcore and up tempo. And it's funny that it all comes back full circle. And similar to you, I went to college also during the boom of EDM. But when I started college in 2009, so it was still pretty underground. But then by like 2012, toward the end of college, like that's when we really saw like Avicii selling out stadiums and Armin van Buuren was selling out. Like it would just jump in the between. So I went to college between 2009 and 2013. And I feel like those were very transformative years for EDM.
Yeah, I'm just, I guess, one year ahead of you. Yeah, so basically same time. I also forgot about DDR. Can't believe I didn't mention that. My sister and I, we had they're kind of like foam like pads that you can buy for like PlayStation, and we were just like ripping that all day. It was so ridiculous. But yeah, I didn't like realize, now those are like actual genres that people listen to. I thought it was like this crazy gamer music, but yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I actually remember the first time I ever heard dubstep, and it was in college, and it was Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites by Skrillex. And I remember same reaction as you to Rusko, like, what is this weird music? And then I'm like, I think I like it, but like, what is it? There's someone screaming in the song. It's like very aggressive. And like I just remember,
why does it sound bad on purpose?
Yeah. And now it's funny because like most of the music I listen to now sounds bad on a lot of in the harder styles, especially here in the Netherlands. It's like meme techno, and like it sounds bad on purpose. It's just like not supposed to be well produced.
Yeah, that stuff is crazy.
I love it. I live for it. But yeah, I'm really interested to hear more about your European travels, and we're gonna get there. But so what drew you into bass music compared to other genres? Has it been bass music from day one, from the moment you heard Rusko, or did you kind of fluctuate between the genres?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had like a whole first like music career in the band like rock world. So I was super, super into metal, was in all kinds of metal bands as a drummer, also as a vocalist. So when I started getting into like electronic music as a whole, I was kind of listening to everything, like even like really like cheesy, like big room house and stuff like that. But as I started like developing actual tastes, I gravitated toward the heavy stuff because it's just like the metal of EDM. And yeah, I just like something about dubstep and like trap and all of that like really caught me. I was like, it's like just like metal breakdowns, but they sound like they're from the future. So that's it. Yeah. And like, I just really thought there was something super interesting about that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of crossover between metal and dubstep, I've noticed. Like I've had a couple of people on this podcast say like they started off in metal, they liked metal, and now they like dubstep. Why do you think a lot of people make that jump? Why do you think there is that overlap?
Yeah, I think there's a couple reasons. One, I think, is just it's like metal is like the most extreme music you can like make in rock. It's like just so in your face, it's so over the top, everything is just ridiculous and like turned up to 11. And I think like dubstep's kind of the same thing. I mean, maybe like hard dance and stuff is similar too, but they're just like these genres that are all about just being super extreme and like high energy, and there's like all this like aggression and all of that. So I think like musically there's tons of overlap. I also think that like the communities around the genres are really similar. That's something that I've noticed. Like, I grew up like going to and like I played like the Vans Warped Tour, which is like a big rock and metal and stuff festival in the States that doesn't exist anymore, but it was kind of like the pinnacle of that genre for like 30 years or something.
Yeah, the cool kids went to that in my high school. I remember hearing about it, like, oh, that sounds cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the fans there are like super, super dedicated. Like the fans in the heavy rock, like we just call it like the scene, are like really, really into it and passionate about it. They're always like wearing merch to school. A lot of the music is like spread entirely through like word of mouth. And it's sort of like this underground thing, like that is extremely popular, but quote unquote normal people don't really know about it. But it's like, it's weird. It's super underground, but it also has this massive following, which I think is like really similar to bass music. It's sort of like everyone is super die hard about it. Like the fans are really, really into it. They're really engaged, and it's very community based. Like it sort of feels like a family. And when you're at the shows, it's like you feel this connection to everyone because you're all into this like weird niche thing. So I think that that's something that I've seen, at least. Like I'm still obviously a huge rock and metal person, but getting into the dance music scene and bass music scene, I see a lot of like similarities there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I agree the same. The hard dance scene is similar to the dubstep scene in that if you're at a festival, you just make eye contact with someone, you become friends. You're singing along together to the lyrics, and you just have this shared thing that on the one hand is underground. If you look at the numbers, like compared to other genres, dubstep's not that big of a genre. Same with hard dance. But then at the same time, it is kind of mainstream because you have huge festivals dedicated to it, both, for dubstep in the UK and Europe, and in the US, and then hard dance as well. So it's like, how can you, it's interesting. I guess I never thought about like that. How can you be underground and mainstream at the same time? How can you be underground but have sell 100,000 tickets to something,
Yeah, it's super weird. I like I just did a show with Sullivan King here in San Diego, and I invited a bunch of my friends that aren't like in the scene at all. They just like wanted to come support me and see what's up with this like crazy DJ thing that I do. And like I was like, yeah, I'm opening for like this huge guy. He's like one of the biggest like artists in the entire scene. And they're like, who's that? Like, I don't care who Sullivan King is. Like, King we just want to go see you, and then like we'll leave. I was like,
oh my god, yeah. Did they leave?
No, they actually all stayed and like raged. I was very proud of them. I was kind of concerned because, I mean, my stuff's like pretty in your face, but then like Sullivan King is like really, really in your face, like screaming, shredding guitar, like all this stuff. So I was like, they're not going to have fun. Like I was like worried, and they were all like going so ham, like having a blast. So that was really awesome.
That's amazing. It sounds like they had a great time. But yeah, it's always a little nerve-wracking when you bring like a new person to something, especially when you listen to such weird beep boop music or robot music, or, in my case, like hard dance is also like, it's not for everybody. It'd be one thing if you took someone to like a Martin Garrix show or to Timmy Trumpet or something that's a little more like music you hear on the radio, not so extreme, not so fast. And also one thing we haven't mentioned yet with dubstep and metal and hard dance is it can get pretty dark. The lyrics can get pretty dark. The visuals can get pretty dark. For example, I've seen Sudden Death a lot when I'm back in the US, and like his void sets. I mean, that's like next level.
Yeah. If you like didn't know, you're like, wait, are we doing like a satanic ritual? Like what the hell is going on?
Like, what did you take me to? Yeah.
And I mean, like Sullivan King is like a gnarly entry point. Like I think for a lot of my friends that were there, like they probably heard like dubstep, here and there. It's kind of like it's hard to avoid, but
yeah,
I was like, this is like a really in your face way to be introduced to this culture.
Welcome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So taking it back to the early days still, so you come from the metal scene. So how would you describe the progression of your sound from the early days in metal to what you're doing now as a bass artist?
Yeah, it's kind of come full circle in a funny way because I played in all these bands, did all that stuff. And then I essentially like retired from playing rock music or whatever. And I started just messing around with EDM, and I like made all kinds of awful stuff. Like I just had no sound. I was like just screwing around and like watching YouTube videos about how to produce and stuff like that. And my first like most of my early High Society material is like very much like straight up EDM, straight up bass music. Like it's just like kind of generic trap, generic dubstep, generic like electro house, whatever. And I actually sort of like started building up my career and following just from doing that. I guess like my first, I mean, I'm almost kind of getting ahead of myself actually, because there is a sort of funny story that High Society in its first ever iteration was actually like a live electronic band. So this is like in 2012. Yeah, so like this project has in some form existed for like over 10 years. So it was me singing, had a drummer and a guitar player, and then like this guy that would do like DJing and electronic stuff. They were all just like friends from college. And we like we're trying to do this like electronic rock thing that I'm doing now, but like we had no idea what we were doing back then. So like we had like cool ideas, but I don't think we were like executing it very well. I'm like an okay singer, but I'm not a great singer by any means. So that wasn't going to work. So it sort of like just slowly fizzled into just me by myself, just producing and like doing remixes and stuff like that. Yeah. So that sort of like gets back to like 2016 ish. I started like doing my first like label releases on small labels, and that all that stuff was just like really, really pure electronic bass music stuff. And I guess like around that time, because I had still been a metal rock fan this whole time. I started doing like unofficial, just bootleg remixes of like rock bands. I did this one for Breaking Benjamin, that like was completely bootleg, illegal remix, and it just like blew up on like SoundCloud and YouTube. It actually ended up getting like taken down, but I mean, yeah, it's like I didn't have the rights to it, so you can't be mad about that kind of stuff. But yeah, I started doing more and more of that, and then I guess like around maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I started kind of really intentionally bringing rock and metal influence back into my music. So even before I started putting, like real instruments and working with rock artists and stuff like I am now, I kind of my music started to have more just like a rock feel. Like I was almost writing more rock feeling music just in an electronic way. And now it's sort of like come all the way back full circle, because I'm like working on this DATAMOSH album. I'm collaborating with all of these rock bands and like rock singers, and like all the songs have like real guitar, real drums, all of that stuff on them. So it's like this true kind of hybrid of electronic and my rock roots coming together. Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of work. That sounds like a lot of work and a lot of moving parts and people involved. How do you go about deciding who to collaborate with and who to work with? Or do you just have a list in your head of like, I know a drummer, I know a singer, I know a guy?
Yeah, it's a couple ways, because I mean, I have some like the first song from the album that's already out is called Burn, and it's with singer of a band called Escape the Fate. So they're like a pretty big American like rock metal band that I had been a fan of since I was like 16. I like know like every word to every one of their songs. And I just like slid in the singer's DMs and I was just like, hey, do you want to like maybe like jump on a track? Like I'm trying to do like rock EDM hybrid stuff. And like it was like 2 sentences back and forth, and then I was like talking to his manager, talking to my label about like how we're gonna get them on and stuff like that. So I do have some, like I have a list of kind of targets like that are like really big bands that I'm a fan of that I want to collaborate with. And then there's also other stuff that happens like with Fixed, which is the label that I'm doing this album with. They have a lot of multi-genre or genre blending artists. That's kind of like their ethos as a label, is like they're sort of rock leaning, but all the bands kind of have like some kind of weird infusion. Like it's not just like straight up rock music. It's like a lot of rock, electronic kind of hybrid artists and stuff like that. So like I just dropped this song a couple months ago with this guy Becco, who's another artist on Fix, who is like this insane singer, rapper, screamer, multi-genre dude. So in that case, it was just like, oh yeah, this is like a supernatural thing. So we're both on the same label. We're both doing kind of like weird left of center music. What if we just do it together? But yeah, I have a very long list of targets. Take forever if it's like a huge band. There can be like a lot of hoops to jump through, or sometimes like you have to wait if the band is like on an album cycle or something like that. They don't want to release anything else for like a year, so like sometimes it can take forever in that way. But yeah.
Well, that's interesting. But yeah, it definitely sounds like a lot of work. So do you do all of this full time, right?
Sort of. Like I basically do, I kind of like tell people I have like a double life, because
me too.
I do music full time, probably more than full time. If you're describing like 40 plus hours a week or something, or like every day or whatever is like full time, I'm definitely working on music a lot every single day. And I've been doing like a lot more like fly out shows and stuff like that. So that's been ramping up a lot this year. And I have like more stuff coming up. And I also do, this is the double life, I also do like freelance work in graphic design and motion graphics and video. So I sort of do that on like a project basis. So it plays really well with the music stuff, because it's sort of like, okay, if I need to make a little bit of money, I can take this project on, whatever, and like that's fine. But if I need to like not have a side job at any given time, I sort of can. Like if I have a bunch of shows coming up, or if I'm like really working on a crazy, song that has a tight turnaround or something, I can sort of just turn it off. So that works really well. If you have to have a side hustle, it's like I have like the best one that an artist can have, I think.
Yeah, that sounds really flexible. And yeah, you could do it on the go, and you could set your own schedule. Yeah, that's good. Because I can't imagine if you had like your traditional 9 to 5 in an office, and then your work, especially because the type of music that you're describing, it's not just you and your laptop. You're dealing with live instruments and singers and all these moving parts and touring. I mean, yeah, that's a lot of work. That takes up a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, the more I've gone into this like hybrid genre, the more I'm just like, this is crazy. Like it takes a long time to put the songs together. I basically write them all as like normal electronic things first, and then I'll kind of like leave space, like, okay, I'm going to replace this like electronic synth bass thing with like a real guitar, and then like get that whole thing done. And then it's like, okay, now we have to get vocals on it. And then you have to like mix it, and mixing real instruments and electronic stuff together is challenging as well, because all the electronic sounds are so like crispy and like high fidelity sounding, whereas like a real like metal electric guitar or something is like a lot kind of more like warm sounding and stuff like that. And so like when they're put next to each other, sometimes the difference is really jarring. So that's a challenge as well, but getting awesome results. So stoked on that.
That's great. And yes, speaking of awesome results, so I was taking a look at your Spotify. You have 116,000 monthly listeners. That's huge. That's a really big accomplishment. How did you work up to that following? I'm assuming it didn't just happen overnight.
Yeah, Spotify's weird. Like because that number like fluctuates a lot. I think like it definitely started out really slow. Like I have a lot of empathy for people that are just starting out, because it's really, really difficult to build momentum on Spotify. then sort of once you do, it sort of like keeps your momentum for you forever because it's so algorithmically driven. Because like basically what I like started doing, I was releasing music on there for like a couple of years before I ever got, you know, even like 10,000 monthly listeners or something like that. And I started just like sending my stuff around to like unofficial playlisters and stuff like that, and like getting a little bit of traction here and there, but it just feels like such an uphill battle for a while. And I think my real growth started happening, like I sort of got two things to happen at the same time that sort of like hockey sticked my numbers up, and like put a lot of eyes onto my back catalog as well, because I had released like a ton of music on there before I ever got a song that like really popped off. But that will tell Spotify to like show people your old music too. So like that's another thing, is like just having a solid catalog on there is good. It's like very unlikely that your first or second thing is going to like somehow explode. Yeah, I started doing some really big like official remixes. Like I had this ongoing relationship with Red Bull. They have a record label called Red Bull Records. And I did an official remix for AWOL Nation, which is like a very, very big kind of like alternative rock band. They have this like Sail song that was like in every single video ever when it came out. So I did a remix for song for them, and when it's like tagged correctly, it comes out as like a collaborative release. So I still remember that day I was like at this dinner with my wife, and I like looked at the stats, and like it literally just like 90-degree listeners went up, because it like I got like 50,000 plays in one day or something like that, because it was such a big thing. And then of course it goes back down, but every time I would do something like that, it's like it hockey sticks up and then it kind of tapers down, and then the baseline is now a little bit higher, and then some section of those people would go and trickle down and check out my old stuff. And then I would do another big remix like that for Red Bull or another label or something, and it would sort of just keep going around. And sort of simultaneously while I was doing that, I started releasing music with Lowly and Trap Nation. Lowly's like the Trap Nation sister record label, if anyone doesn't know that. And they have a really strong Spotify playlist that is unofficial. So like it's called Trap Nation, but it's just like some personal account that it has nothing to do with Spotify's like editorial team or anything. And if you release with Lowly, they'll put your song on there. So that's like their playlist even gets like more streams than some like official playlists. So doing a bunch of releases with them started getting that number up as well. And then what it's like I was saying in the beginning, once you hit sort of like that initial stride and start to get momentum, like the Spotify algorithm is just so magical. Like it's just automatically pushing your music out to tons of new people every week. And it's like you couldn't even stop it if you wanted to, unless you like pulled the music down. So yeah, it's sort of like really tough to get started, but once you get a couple like solid hits going, it almost builds momentum for you in a way. So yeah.
How does it compare to, for say, like SoundCloud? Do you prefer to put music out on Spotify or SoundCloud, or do you do both? Is that complicated?
Yeah, I basically put music everywhere. I don't really push my SoundCloud super hard. Like I don't really direct people to it. I put stuff on there. It's like, you know, kids will find it, and I have a small following there. So I don't want to like, you know, deprive people of my songs if they prefer to listen there. But I've noticed kind of like, I think that their like algorithmic discovery isn't as good as Spotify's. And then I also just kind of started noticing something 3 or 4 years ago, where basically anytime I would be talking to a promoter or a label or anything, the only metric that they cared about was the Spotify monthly listener metric. Like no one's even ever asked me about Apple Music numbers or anything, which is like just
I forgot
as big
about
of
Apple Music.
Yeah, like no one thinks about them. They have a huge user base too, and like I get tons of streams on there, but like just no one cares. Like all they care about is Spotify. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like build this. Whenever I'm dropping a new song, I'm just gonna direct people to Spotify and like kind of water the plants where I want them to grow. So yeah.
That makes sense. It's funny, back in the day, I feel like everyone had iTunes, like when we were in high school or college, like iTunes and buying songs on iTunes. And now it's like, I don't hear anything about Apple Music anymore. It's all Spotify. And yeah, of course, SoundCloud too, but mostly Spotify. Like the majority of the music I listen to is on Spotify or YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much same for me. I really like Spotify's just like interface better too. Like, I just think it's kind of like a better product. I wish they paid more in royalties, but
yeah. So how does that work then with the royalties? Is that money that you could really count on it, or is it just more of like side hustle, nice passive income?
I mean, it's a decent amount of money. I mean, I live in San Diego, so you definitely can't live in San Diego off of a 100,000-ish Spotify monthly listeners salary. Especially because a lot of, actually, like all of my music that I've released in the last like 6 or 7 years has all been through labels. So, but they have to recoup all of their costs. And then once the costs are recouped and you're splitting, usually like 50-50 with the label. It's like pretty common in like dance music and stuff. So yeah, it's like a nice, I think at this point it's become like a not stupid amount of money. But it's definitely not, no one's like living large off their Spotify streams unless you're like Drake.
Okay. So for electronic music, it's difficult. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So yeah. I want to talk a little bit next about your live performances. So dubstep is known for high energy. It's known for being dark. It's known for being crazy, like we talked about. What goes through your mind right before you step up on the stage? How do you prepare for your sets? Do you have any rituals? This is one of my favorite questions to ask people because I get a different answer every time. Some people have so many rituals and routines, and other people are like, I take a shot of vodka and I go. So what do you do?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm definitely more the second way. Like,
okay.
I don't plan stuff out too much. Like I sort of just kind of get a vibe for the room. Like a lot of it depends on like where in the lineup I'm playing. So like most commonly I'm either direct support or headlining. Direct support is like right before the headliner. So in those cases, like you can usually plan to go like pretty hard and just like straight out the gate start throwing down super hard because like the energy in the room is usually very high at that point. Or even if it's like, if it's like a headlining show that I'm doing, even if it's like a small show, everyone that's there is there to see me. So like you can kind of just be like, I'm going to give you what you want. Like we're going to go ham. In some cases, like the Sullivan King show, for instance, that was 3 artists and I was playing first. So I started playing right when the doors of the venue opened, or actually like 5 minutes before. They were like, just start playing music, like so it's loud when people walk in. And like, so in that case, that is almost like a rare occasion where you have to very kind of intentionally and tactfully like warm up the room. So in that case, like started out kind of more chill, and it was an hour-and-a-half set. So it's like, okay, the first like 20 minutes or whatever are going to be kind of chill. Everyone's like, getting drunk and just hanging out. And then you can start to sort of feel like the intensity build. And then you like begin the climb, the ascension into like going super hard for like the last 45 minutes or something like that. That's also a belief that I have that is super hotly debated in the scene, is like, some people say the order of who's playing should not matter and should not have any bearing over how like hard someone goes or like how in your face their set is. Like if they want to start just dropping bangers right at 9 p.m. when there's no one in the club, like that's fine. I don't really agree. Like I think that I'm much more try to have the night feel like the energy's kind of curated and like, you know, even if I'm like direct supporting, so like second to last, I'll go pretty hard, but like I'll probably just go like absolutely really, really in your face for like the last 20 minutes or something like that. So that it like creates this nice buildup for the headliner, but it's not like I'm just like blowing everyone's head off the whole time. Like I really try to, I don't want to say know my place, but like I sort of try to like build the energy of the night. And like, depending on where I am, I try to like kind of meet where I think that energy should be or what the crowd seems to want. And I've gotten good feedback about that. So yeah, that's sort of like how I think about it. In terms of like pre-show ritual and stuff like that, I freaking hate the 2 hours before I play. I just try to like do something else, not think about it, not hang out in the venue for super long, just like go get a beer with a friend or something like that. And then like 15 minutes or so before, take a shot, grab a White Claw and a water bottle for the stage. And then like, I just basically black out from adrenaline most of the time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can definitely understand that, like the anticipation, the build up, the waiting to go on, and you're just like, oh, I just want to get on already. And especially,
I hate it.
Sure, yeah,
just thinking about everything that can go wrong. So,
and things do go wrong. You know, I've been in the scene for a very long time. I don't even know how many years at this point, since 2009, and I've seen it gone wrong. You know, I've seen lights fall. I've seen issues with stages. I've seen DJs under the influence not be able to perform. I've seen people not show up. I've seen equipment stop, lights go out, cops come.
yeah,
I've seen it all. I mean, there's so many things that can happen, but I definitely agree with you about the buildup. I also like the buildup and progression. And I think it's good that you do that, because a lot of people don't. And I see that a lot in hard dance. Like, let's say you have a hard style DJ and then all of a sudden they start playing up tempo, and then the next DJ is a hard style DJ again. And everyone's like, yeah. And then they're like, oh, cause it's like when you reach a certain point, when you're so hyped, you got the crowd going, everyone's going crazy. If you're going to go and bring it back down, that's, at least for me, like, I don't want to be brought down. I want it to keep going up, or at least within the set, a little bit of a wave, but it should stay within. Yeah. And the other weird thing that I see sometimes is DJs playing the tracks of the next artist, like their major songs. I've seen that a couple times. Like,
I can't believe that's a thing.
I've seen it a lot.
Insane. Like,
I'm like, no.
I don't know if I've ever seen that in real life.
Seen it.
I've definitely never done it. I mean, my sets are like mostly originals anyway.
Yeah.
So the chance of that happening is very low, but it blows my mind that ever happens. Like, even while you're like mixing it in, couldn't you be like, oh wait, that's who I'm like playing with. I probably shouldn't play this song. Like,
play their number one song. Maybe that everyone's
they're just so nervous. Like, that's like just big, like, it's my first show energy right there. So
nervous, or kind of also like disrespectful, I would say, because if they know that let's use Sullivan King as an example. If they know that everybody's there for Sullivan King and they play Sullivan King's number one song at the moment, I can't think of it top of my head, people are going to go crazy for it, and they know that. So that's kind of like, are you just doing this to get
so
crowd
weird
going?
Like,
yeah, I've seen it
weird strategy. And that's a great way to ensure that headliner is going to hate your guts forever. Like,
yeah. And a lot of what I've been seeing now is like a lot of the same song being played over and over again on the same stage. So there's like a couple of like, you know, big songs at the moment in hard dance. And like, I'll hear it like 9 times on the main stage. I'm like, because so I'm working in the scene. I do event reviews, as you know. And like, so I'm spending a lot of time at each stage, just listening, using Shazam, taking notes. And so I'm really perceptive to these kind of things. And like, I've heard this song so many times now. For example, that TikTok song, Push It by Creed.
Oh yeah.
Creed's everybody in every genre. So I was at Tomorrowland. I heard it. I actually wrote an article, not to like plug myself, but like I wrote an article, like the top 10 songs I heard at Tomorrowland. And that was one of them. Actually, I would have put that at number 1 if it was like in a ranking, but yeah, it's like, it's weird. The scene.
Yeah. There's definitely tracks that like I mean, it's kind of weird too, because especially when I headline or do like direct support or something, so I'm one of the last artists of the night. Like when I'm adding new music to my like sets, like on my USB and stuff like that, I almost never put really, really popular, trendy songs because I'm so sure that one of the openers is going to play it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, that only needs to be heard once tonight. Like, I'm not going to like be like, guess what's coming up. It's like, yeah, yes. It's like, I don't know. I just try to really make it like more unique and maybe play stuff that like people have never heard before, or like just play a lot of my own stuff. And everybody has kind of different philosophy about it though.
Yeah. And then how do you balance all these things that we just said? So like, how do you, because you have songs you want to play. Let's say you're really passionate about the song that you just made, or, you know, there's a song you really want to see how the audience reacts to, or you just worked on a collab with someone and they're there waiting for you to play the song, right? But then also you have the songs, you know, the crowd wants to hear. And then again, talking about this build up, this progression, keeping in mind who you're opening for or who's after you, who's before you. How do you balance all of that? That's a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of it is like the preparation beforehand. Like, I guess for people who don't know, there's like a program called Rekordbox, which is like software that you use to load music onto your USB drive. So when you plug it into a CDJ, which is DJ equipment, it like has all your playlists and stuff, and like your tracks are tagged, and like the beats per minute of the song and stuff appear on the screen. So a lot of it is like you have to build up a really strong catalog that's like really well organized. So like I sort of have I have stuff by like energy level and genre and stuff like that. So like I was sort of saying before, like I don't plan stuff out. Like, I'm not like, okay, I'm going to play this song into this song into this song and do that for an hour. Like some people do plan out like very curated. I'm doing a set. This is the exact set that I'm doing. I'm not deviating from it at all. I don't really like to do that so much. Like I like to kind of, you know, look up at the crowd every couple songs and be like, okay, are people kind of just standing there bobbing their head, or like they're going crazy? Like, let's go more that way. Like I'll notice sometimes something that I typically do is like I'll do a tempo transition into like a drum and bass section of my set, and like I've noticed sometimes it like completely falls flat, like it's not what people wanted, and then I'm like, okay, I'm glad I don't have half an hour of this meticulously planned out that I can't deviate from, because then I'm gonna like totally lose the crowd. Then on the other hand, sometimes it's like that's what finally gets the room to like explode. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm glad I prepared a whole bunch of like drum and bass kind of stuff, because now I can like take them on this ride. So try to be like adaptable. But a lot of that is from doing the preparation beforehand in Rekordbox and like making sure you have stuff organized, because it's so loud. There's a million lights in your face. You have to make these decisions super fast. You're like all sweaty and like tired. So you're like, okay, what am I doing? So trying to like set yourself up to be able to make those decisions in real time. That all happens like, you know, days or weeks before shows. So
nice. It sounds like there's a lot of flexibility involved, but also a lot of planning at the same time. Planning and flexibility.
Yeah, it's like planning to be flexible, I guess.
Yeah.
Because that's my thing too, is my sound is like really multi-genre. Like it has like elements of like dubstep, trap, electro, drum and bass, and rock and metal and all that stuff. So like I can sort of be a chameleon a little bit depending on like what bill I'm on. So yeah, I'd like to kind of be able to adapt and all of that.
Yeah. So you mentioned a lot of genres. Are there any genres that you want to incorporate or experiment with that you haven't yet? Or do you think you covered a lot of them already?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because there definitely are like, I'm sort of just forcing myself right now to like literally like finish this album. Like it's 10-song album. The whole theme of it is like merging bass music and rock. So I am like constantly shutting down the like ADD part of my brain that's like, what if we make this kind of track today? What if we make this? It's like, no, we're like doing this thing. We're doing this like very intentional, deliberate like body of work that has to like fit in this set of constraints. So like that's something that I think actually drives like the best quality stuff, is like having some constraints to work in. Like for example, I have like on my desktop, I have like a top secret like melodic techno minimal, like a bunch of like song ideas and stuff that I'm never ever going to release. I just like that genre, so like sometimes I'll like noodle around and make it. So that's like, okay, got that out of the system. Now we're like back to like do what this album is and like what your advertising high society is. So I kind of like want to make every genre, to be honest. Like I think there's some really cool like funk stuff is like really crazy. I like hated that stuff when I first heard it, but now I'm like, this is kind of cool. I could definitely do some crazy hard style, hard dance type of stuff. That would be fun. But yeah, I'm sort of just like forcing myself to stay focused for the next couple of months.
You're almost there. You can do it.
Yeah, it's a beast of a project. Like I've been working on it for like a year already. And yeah, it's taking a lot of time and energy, but I'm very stoked on how it's turning out.
So how do you go about approaching a project like that? Do you have to set aside some time every day? Do you start at the same time every day? Like, do you take breaks? Do you take days off? Do you work when inspiration comes to you? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with this one because like doing an album, like I typically would not normally work on like multiple songs at once. I try to like start something. Once I have an idea that I like, I'm writing and finishing the entire thing all the way through, getting it mastered, and then whatever, sending it off to a label or coordinating the release or whatever. And I'm like, I'm done like messing with it. Like this is done. We're moving to the next thing. But that's been really different from how this album has been, because it's like 10 tracks. They're basically all, except for like one or two of them, they're all collaborations. So for each song, I'm dealing with someone else's schedule in some way. I have a track out right now that is completely done, except I'm waiting for the vocalist to finish the vocals. So like that song is now TBD. They could send it to me today. They could send it to me in like 3 months. Like, I don't know. So they're like, okay, I have to now start working on another one that might be just a brand new idea sketch, or it might be like finishing the final mix and master of like something that I started before, and like slowly starting to like slot these. It's like the album is coming to life in real time. So in terms of like the workflow and whatnot, per your question, like I definitely try to do every single morning, start the day with like a couple of hours of working on music before my critical brain has fully turned on, before my phone has swallowed up my mind and stuff like that. So like the early morning sesh is super critical, because I find for some reason I just like write the best stuff and like I feel the most creative at that time. I think it has something to do with like your critical parts of your brain aren't fully awake, so you can just like you get into like a flow state really easily, at least for me. And I notice if you do that a couple hours in the early morning, then you kind of have this like creative momentum through the day already, so it's really easy to then like jump back in later in the day. Or sometimes, depending on what the day is, I'll just go straight for like the entire day. But if I have, like I was talking about before, if one of my like graphic design clients or something needs something, have to be able to like pop out and do that. But the early morning session is super, super critical. Yeah.
I didn't know that about the early mornings. I work from home and I usually just make coffee and come right to my desk and start checking emails and stuff. But maybe I should. Yeah, so I have a full-time job on top of all the stuff I do in the electronic music scene, but maybe I should start my day with the more creative stuff, like you're saying, instead of checking emails and listening to the news.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember when I discovered it. I think like read some book or something like 5 years ago that, and like one of the things was like you just need to get up super early. And I started like getting up really early just for purposes of like doing what this book said. And I kind of noticed like, oh, nothing is happening at this time in the world. So I have all this like, it's like, I might as well just like work on music. And then I noticed that once I started doing that, like my output increased a ton. So like nice little trick.
Cool. Everyone listening, do that. Yeah. Good tip. That's awesome. So we're coming toward the end now. We didn't get to all my questions. I have so many questions for you. So I'll have to have you back on another time, but I want to talk about the topic I've been dying to ask you about, and that's your time in the Netherlands. So as you know, I'm an American living in the Netherlands. I moved here 7 years ago. And so I'm really curious to know what brought you here. How did you like it? What did you do here? And then also my other favorite question to ask people, the differences between the American and the Dutch rave scene, because they are so different.
Yeah, super different. But yeah, I'll try to keep it as concise as possible, as I'm sure you know, like moving across the world is freaking crazy. So I moved there because my wife had a business opportunity. So like in simple terms, like I had no particular reason to move there except just following my wife and supporting this like opportunity that she had. I was very into my music career at the time. I was like, oh yeah, like Dutch people, they love dance music. Like I had already done like a release on like Barong Family and like some other
cool
like Dutch labels. So I was like, yeah, I'll just like go be a DJ over there. Like, you know, it'll be a crazy story for my kids or something. Yeah. So my wife goes out there. She like got this opportunity to open this business and stuff like that. So I'm just out there and I'm like, I'll just go live in Europe and I'll just work on music and have a great time. It was really insane because we were there for about 2 years. So yeah, like exactly 2 years. And it was more or less split like right down the middle by the pandemic. So we were there for a year. We had like a normal year in Europe where we were doing all the fun, awesome Europe stuff, like boating around, drinking beers and traveling all over the country or countries. Like we went to so many different places just by, you know, how easy it is by train or like $50 flights and stuff like that. So we were having like the best time. It was really crazy because obviously there's some parts of it that are super challenging. Like a lot of the administrative stuff, we were just like, what the hell are we doing? Like trying to call the government and all the automated phone lines are in Dutch. So you just press one and that's the wrong thing. So you hang up, call back, try pressing two until you finally get to a real person. And then you have to like admit with so much shame that you don't speak Dutch. So like, they're like, I guess I'll help you. There's definitely some challenging parts. Like it was not only the first time that I had lived outside of San Francisco, my hometown. So I lived there for like 29 years before I lived anywhere else. And the first place I live is in Europe, where I know no one. So that was like definitely jarring. Culture shock was insane for sure. Obviously, you know, the Netherlands is a wonderful place to live. Like there's so many awesome things about it. Ride your bike everywhere. Weather sucks.
Yep. Complain about the weather. Yeah.
Food is like hit or miss, I guess. Dutch food, not for me, but there's a lot of good like international food there for sure. Yeah, it was awesome. And then when the pandemic happened, it was crazy. We moved onto a houseboat. So that's like real typical Dutch energy right there. For people who don't know, is like living on a houseboat is completely normal thing to do. It's not just for like weird pirates.
They're beautiful, those houseboats.
Yeah, really we got so lucky. Like we were just looking to move apartments, and we were like, oh, what if we check the box on, what is it, like Funda, whatever the site,
Funda and Parias
Funda,
and all those sites,
we were like, if we check the box to search for whole houses, like houseboats start coming up. We're like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. Let's try a houseboat. We think it's going to be kind of weird. We call the guy and he's like, why don't you just come stay for a night, like just see if you like it. And I was like, that's a very chill thing.
It's a very generous thing.
Yeah, super nice thing for him to offer. So we stay on it for the night. We're like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, oh my god, there's swans everywhere, it was on the Amstel River, so it goes like right through the middle of Amsterdam. We were like, this is the best thing ever. So we lived there, and like the day that we moved onto it was the day that the whole lockdown started. Like we were just sitting there
timing.
like,
wow,
yeah, move on this new place, and then we're just like watching the world burn. Like, what is going on? That actually ended up being like kind of an awesome time. Like, obviously it was very challenging and horrible for so many people, but it was like we had just moved on to this really, really cool, amazing place to live. And like for the first time in like both of our lives, we were just able to just kind of like stop for a second. And I was like, I guess I'm just gonna work on music all day long. And like I wrote like insane music. Like I feel like I really kind of leveled up my producing during that time, just from being so like isolated and focused on one thing. And then, yeah, we're just chilling on this boat the whole time. And then we left when everything was still locked down.
We were in lockdown for so long. I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. We were in lockdown from March 2020 until February 2022. Like, yeah, that is crazy. Such a long time. And we had moments where it was like open, close, but pretty much like, yeah, in lockdown. Like, yeah, it was wild. And it seems now like it would never happened, or it seems now like it was so long ago, but like February 2022 was last year. Like, that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it's not that long ago. Yeah. So we like, we left, and then we came back to the States, and everything in the States was open. And we're like, wait, this is so weird. Like, we're allowed to like look at each other. Like it was very weird because we hadn't been back to the US that whole time, basically. So
crazy.
That was very strange. Yeah, Netherlands is awesome. Should I answer your other question too?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Go for it. Just go for it. So what are the differences then that you saw, or what raves and festivals did you go to when you were here?
Oh my God. Let me think about this. So many good ones. So first of all, there's so many awesome venues in Amsterdam. Like there's this place called Shelter that I really liked. Yeah. Such a sick club. It's like I just want to tell this for anyone that's listening, is like you go in off the street level. It's completely unassuming, like little staircase, and you walk down, and it's like you're going into like Blade or something. It's like literally below the surface of the world. So it's like literally super underground. Awesome club, super smoky. You can't see anything. It's like very dark and like techno-y. That was an awesome spot. There was this place called De School, which is like literally in an old school. That was like a really cool club. I think that's kind of like, I sort of got the impression that was where like a lot younger people went. Like I was like, oh, I'm kind of like 10 years older than everyone here, but I was like, this is cool. We're raving in a school. So that was fun. I went to, what is that festival brand that's like really Elro? I went to Elro.
Oh, I'm dying to go to Elro. She's talking about that over the weekend. I've never been.
I think that was one of the only like big festivals that I went to out there. That was insane. Really fun, to like kind of multi-genre all over the place. And like they had like crazy confetti,
yeah.
Like inflatable animals like everywhere, like insane, like people in costumes like walking around, and like that was really, really awesome. That was like probably the biggest. It was like a very big festival that I went to out there. I mostly went to like club shows and stuff like that. Went to a couple. I mean, it's kind of interesting talking about the difference between the scenes, because like I was very actively looking for like bass music out there, and it's very small and underground compared to how it is out here. Like a lot of the time I'd have to go out to like Utrecht or something, to like some very small like 200 person show or something like that like it like reminded me of like when this stuff was first getting popular in the States like 15 years ago or something. My neighbor actually owns Bitterzoot, which is like one of the clubs in the center of Amsterdam that Yellow Claw throws a lot of their shows at. So yeah, I mean, it's like the opposite almost. It's like bass music is super, super underground. like dubstep and trap and stuff like that aren't really big at all. I think drum and bass has like a pretty strong presence in the Netherlands. But yeah, I was like, it's like house and techno and stuff are way bigger than those types of genres. I never really went to any kind of like hard dance festival or anything like that.
You got to come back.
Yeah, huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, it's
like
huge here.
I really like kicking myself for not going. That's like the mecca of it for like the whole world, right? So
this is the place. Yeah, we got DEF CON and Mysteryland and Dominator and Decibel, and there's a lot of really big, and then the indoor ones, Climax. Like there's a lot of really big hard dance events here, and they're so much fun. So next time you come, you should definitely check some of those out.
yeah, I've been back a couple times actually. Like I will kind of always feel like Amsterdam is my home.
Aww.
Like I still have like so many friends. We were just back there actually for like our really good friend's wedding. Yeah, and I played sort of like stupid and ironic. I played ADE after I had moved back to the States.
I'm going again this year. I go every year. That's so funny, but you moved back.
It was so dumb. It's like I moved back to the US and then it was like 6 months later or something. I'm like going back to Amsterdam. Like I used to live here. This is so weird. And like I never played a show in Amsterdam the whole time that I lived there.
Whoa! And then you came back.
Yeah, the first time I played there is like a fly out to play in a foreign country. So yeah, that was wild.
Awesome. We'll definitely come back sometime. I'm in The Hague, so it's not that far from Amsterdam.
Okay,
it's about an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next time you're here, hit me up. I'll take you to some hardstyle parties.
You need to show me around. You're like clearly the expert.
I am. I definitely am. People hit me up all the time for like recommendations of like where to go, things to do, and I'm a great tour guide, so for sure. So we're coming to the end now. So this is the question that I ask all my guests: how do you rave for a cause or party for a purpose in your life?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think it's sort of funny with me because when I started getting into electronic music and like started going to raves and stuff like that, the purpose, like there was no like deeper purpose or deeper meaning or anything. It was like very much like, I just want to party. It's what all my friends are doing. This is like the cool thing to do. It's like this crazy music, like, just running around like crazy and not really thinking about it in that way. It definitely was sort of like not, I don't want to say not positive because we were having tons of fun, but it didn't really have any deeper place in my life or deeper meaning or anything. And I think like, as I've gotten older and more involved in the scene, especially by being a DJ and playing shows all over the place and meeting so many people like face to face in the scene, both just like people making friends through going to shows, people that support my music or stuff like that. Like, I think being part of the electronic music community and raving and all of that has like, it's like turned into like my like highest purpose in life. Like it has become this community that I feel like so at home in, and so many of my like deepest relationships are like based in, and it's become like very pure. Like it like kind of reminds me not to like take life so seriously, like not, it's like, it's just this sort of like beautiful, almost innocent thing that's like the last thing in life that I have that I could describe that way. So yeah, it's like, it's really completely kind of flipped on its head, because like I said, when I started out, it was completely just like, let's go rage and drink and party. And it's naturally turned into this thing that's like this really positive, like growth and fulfillment oriented part of my life that is, I started out just to go have fun with my friends, so never thought that this would happen, but I love it.
That's amazing. Yeah, same for me. Like when I started raving in college, it was because, well, yeah, it was the times, I went to college in Washington, D.C. So there was like so many raves and clubs, especially there and in Baltimore. And yeah, it was just the fun thing to do. I would never have thought that I would have made like my whole life around this music. Like if you had told me when I was 18, when I saw Steve Angelo for the first time in D.C. on like a Thursday night in college, that like, in, I don't know, 15 years, this is going to be your whole life. Like, what? I was studying political science. What do you mean? Yeah, like what?
Yeah, it's really crazy. Like, it's almost like we were talking about in the very beginning when I was talking about bringing my, like, quote unquote, non-raver friends to that show. And it like took me out of it for a second. And I was like, this is like just such a beautiful thing. Like, I'm so happy that like I'm part of this community, and like, I know all these people, like I've just made all these friends through the scene. Like I know that photographer, I know like this sound guy, like I just played a show with that guy, blah, 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 blah. And like, I was like, these are all just like my friends now. This is like my home and my community. And it's just like a really kind of beautiful thing to realize, because it's like I really feel like at peace, and like I can be my like truest, most authentic self when I'm there. So that's kind of like the purpose that I derive from it.
That's a great answer, and I agree 100%. And that's just one of many reasons why we love this scene so much, for sure.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. Like, I want to go listen to all your other ones and see what everyone's answer to that is, because that's like no one ever asked that kind of question about like going to raves. So
yeah, and that's what I've built Drop Bass Not Bombs on, this concept of raving for a cause, because I saw much more to this community than just partying and loud music and lasers, and there's so much more here. Some of the most passionate, wonderful people, and so much good can come out of it too. A lot of the answers to the questions have been about mental health, sustainability, and then or like you said as well, just being the truest version of yourself, where they feel at home. We're in the third season now of the podcast, so there's a lot of answers. I can't think of all of them, but there's definitely been a lot of different answers to that question, which is great. So okay, my final question for you though: where can people connect with you online? Drop everything so they can find you and listen to your music.
Artist name High Society. It's all one word, so it should be pretty easy to find on any platform if you just type in High Society without a space. Instagram is definitely where I'm most active. This is High Society is my account, so hit me up there, shoot me a DM and let me know you heard this. Music, go to Spotify, as we talked about before. That's just same thing, High Society, all one word. That'll be easy to find. Hit me up. I love meeting people that are interested in what I'm doing, and like talking to people, and like it's like we were just talking about, I've had so many quote unquote fans that have turned into like very good friends of mine.
Aww.
Like I'm actually gonna hang out with a kid like this weekend that I just met through music, and then he came to one of my shows when I played in his state, and I'm like, yeah, let's just hang out like normally now. So yeah, hit me up, guys.
Love that. Thank you so much for today. This was so much fun. I'll have to have you back on again to ask you the rest of the questions that I had, and for us to go out in Amsterdam. That'd be great.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Bye.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, for sure. Bye. So that was my episode with High Society. It was so much fun connecting with him through the Underground Society podcast. And funny that High Society, Underground Society, too funny. It's so cool how the EDM podcast community is so connected, despite us being all over the world. I've had the opportunity to meet and interview so many amazing people, and there's so much more to come. So stay tuned. So now, before we close off, it's time for some announcements. So at the moment that you're listening to this, I'm actually not here. I'm in Amsterdam at Amsterdam Dance Event. So I'll be, depending on what time you're listening to this, I'm either at AD Green at the conference, or I'm at Marcus Scholl's. And then the following day, tomorrow, if you're listening to this, I will be at Amsterdam Music Festival. So if you guys are at AD, hit me up on Instagram, MC Unicorn Official. I have a jam-packed schedule for AD, so definitely hit me up if you're going to be there. Can't wait to meet up with you guys. And please stay tuned for my full ADE recap and EDM House Network coming next week. So speaking of recaps and reviews, my Dream Village review is now available to read all over the internet. I had so much fun at Dream Village. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see some of the photos here from the festival. So Dream Village was the last festival of the Dutch summer festival season and really the last hot day here. So it was really like the last summer day. It was so warm, it was so much fun. So Dream Village, if you guys don't know, it's a small 2-day multi-genre festival. There's 4 stages. It spans all the way from up-tempo, so really hard, to big room house, to your more traditional Dutch music. Just a little bit of everything. I also won a bucket hat, which I keep telling everybody about, which I was so excited about. So thank you so much, Kettle One Vodka, for the bucket hat. I'm going to wear it everywhere. Probably going to rock it in Florida when I'm there soon. So head on over to edmhousenetwork.com and check out my full review there. It's also available on Hardstyle Mag. I also did an Instagram Live about it, so you can check that out as well. Before we close out the episode, as always, I just want to drop some codes for you guys. I know you want to save that money on your upcoming rave outfits. So first up is Shroom Beach. You can use my code MCUnicorn20 and shop from amazing psychedelic swimwear and festival outfits. And best of all, a portion of the proceeds from every purchase goes to support psychedelic research. So head on over to shroombeach.com or click the link in the description or go to my Instagram and get your crazy psychedelic reflective clothes today. My next announcement is from Relita Couture. Relita Couture is a handmade rave festival fashion brand that's sure to make you feel confident and sexy at your next event. The clothes are high quality and functional, some even with pockets, which I love. I've been representing this brand for a while. I've been one of their ambassadors for a really long time. I've worn their clothes all over the world, not just at raves, but also just nights out to dinner. Also have a lot of their active wear. So like comfy sweatpants, shorts, can wear it to the gym. They got a little bit of everything over there. So head on over to RelitaCouture.com, use code MCUnicorn at checkout, and sexy has no size. So lastly, please check out my second podcast, Ravers Revelations, with my friend Elena Van Wyk. So this is the podcast where we read and react to your crazy festival stories. We've had a lot of weird stories. We've covered topics like love, sex, festival pet peeves, after party stories, camping stories, festival favorites, and so much more. I'm happy to announce today that the podcast is now available on her YouTube channel as well. It's also available on Spotify, Apple, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and more. And then if that's not enough, if you like some bonus episodes, some bonus stories, head on over to patreon.com/raversrevelations. You can see the first episodes and then a ton of bonus content and some behind the scenes conversations. Ooh, so go on over and check that out. If you'd like to support me and the podcast, please give me a follow on Instagram at MCUnicornOfficial. Please follow Drop Bass Not Bombs at Drop Bass Not Bombs NL. I'm also on TikTok, that's MC Unicorn Official, and you can support the Drop Bass Not Bombs podcast for as little as 99 cents a month. Click the link down below in the description. You can support me on Spotify. There's all different types of subscription options. So as you guys know, podcasting is not cheap. So help me keep this going. Help me put out more episodes, build my team. Also want to give a huge shout out to Lumify Media, who's been helping me edit the YouTube portion of the episode. So that's been a huge help. Please go on over and check his work out. Click the link down below for that too. So that's all for today. If you like the podcast, leave us a positive review, drop a comment. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time on November 21st. Bye.